Good morning. Denise Dryden here. I'm in Washington, not on Bainbridge. I'm in Shoreline, which is north of Seattle and south of Edmonds. And I'm on this porch with a spectacular view of the Olympic Mountains, the Sound. It's been a fabulous weekend of sort of enjoying all that this area has to offer. Playing bocce last night, doing mystery school. It was wonderful. So today I want to talk about highly sensitive people and their resistance to programming. You know, why they keep hitting these walls when it comes to old traditional programming. So what we know is highly sensitive people are on the rise. In 1997, Elaine Aron wrote a book, and I think the percentages, the percentages were 15 to 20% highly sensitive. She came back with new statistical data last year that increased that to 25 to 35%. So that means that what we have is 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4 people are highly sensitive. Highly sensitive, again, is having these neurological traits, these receptors that bring information into the body at a much higher volume than the average human in the average traditional environment. So a highly sensitive person is wide awake. They're open, they're porous, and they have the information coming in. It's genetic. It's passed down through the generations from parent to child. So it usually comes through one or both parents. I've got some hearts going across the screen already. This is awesome. It's data that's transmitted down through the lineage, and that data can be empathic skills. It can be sensory awareness skills. It means that they have an attunement that's much more complex than the average human. I like to call that attunement a superpower. And the superpower is really their depth of processing. That means that they have the ability to grab information from so many more places than the average human. So I want to go through some of what those areas are. So under the umbrella of depth of processing, their senses, they pay attention to sounds, smells, touch. You may have noticed that if you have a highly sensitive child or you're sensitive yourself, that sometimes tags in your clothing or a certain kind of fabric or hypersensitivity to smells or tactile taste in your mouth. My daughter shared that can you hear the humming of light bulbs in rooms? And I thought, no, I can't do that, but that tells me so much more about you. They're observant. They're curious. They see the big picture, and they also see the minutia. With the second superpower part of depth of processing is the emotional awareness. They're empathic. They read energy waves. They can tell when something's going on in a room. They can tell when something's upset with you. They're open. They're porous. They live in the realm of emotions. If we go to the fact that both senses and emotions can come in at all times, the O in the depth of processing skill set is overstimulation. It means that they can get overwhelmed and they can get overloaded. They can tip really fast, and when they tip, they're reactive. Then when they're in reaction, they can do one of two things. They can go into introversion and isolation and pull back and refuse to participate in the world, or they go into explosion, volcano, impulsiveness. And this is all this depth of processing stuff. Yes, Stuart, you can hear the light bulbs. I know. Of course you can. They are multi-dimensional beings. Does that ring a bell? They're quantum. They are multifaceted. And so they don't do well in linear environments. Makes sense, right? We can't take them and put them in a track and march them through a linear environment. They're best in creative, small, nurturing, little places where the focus is on adaptability, the focus is on flexibility, and the focus is on identifying their unique skill sets, because those skill sets have to be sort of untangled and nurtured out of them, because that's what they're here for, right? They have great skills that we don't see, so we squash them. So throughout the 90s, I think it started in the early 1990s, there's this, I'm gonna take a stretch today, and I'm gonna pull some things that I don't generally talk about. The HSP complex kiddos have been sort of turning the school system upside down. But they're also under the banner of the millennials, which means that these millennials, they just don't do school very well. They don't do jobs very well. But they are also crystal kids, which means that they're vibrational kids. So if you really want to know about that, just Google crystalline kids or crystal kids or indigo kids and start finding out like how their energy is different than the rest of us, or what kind of skills they have that make them so unique. And they're great learners, and they just learn differently. So the HSP brain is going to be one that looks for connections. It's going to be one that brings random pieces together and starts to provide that flow. They look at patterns. They look at the larger systems. They have a quantum way, and so what they are is they're artists, they're creatives, they're scientists, they're mathematicians, they're musicians, they're readers, profound readers, they're athletes, they're cooks. I mean, it doesn't really matter what they do. Whatever they do, they love to do it, and they sink all the way into it. So they're intelligent, they're kind, they're quirky, and they are always living under the banner of, oh, but you're so capable of doing so much more. Capable. I swear we should take that word out of our vocabulary. If someone says that you're capable of being such a good woman in sales, or you're capable of running a company, or you're capable of doing this, it's like, stop. What you perceive as capable isn't something that I'm interested in doing. And so what we want to do is we want to take capable out of the way that we see kiddos, and the way that we talk about them, and the way that we see ourselves. We want to look at it through the lens of their magnificence, of their superpowers. And we want to look at what are we doing when we try to take a kid and we overlay their skills and their intelligence and we put them into existing forms that are old and outdated, like the K through 12 education systems in our country, the colleges in our country. What happens when we have a plane flying over in the middle of what's going on? Sports teams in competition, they're not competitive, or they are, but within themselves. They like to watch the way their body flows. They like to watch the way the team moves in unity, but they're not interested in doing daily doubles for 3 weeks during preseason because that's not where they're playing. Getting a job, getting a 8 to 5 job so that they can pay enormous amounts for rents and then, get into this segmented sort of chugging along life. That's not what they're interested in. They're not interested in formalized religion, whether it's a church or a synagogue or whatnot. They're not interested in making social presentations where they have a lot of friends. They're very specific about what they like and what they don't like and what works for them and what doesn't work for them. So we have to sort of untangle and pull out this 1950s idea of what does a responsible human being look like and feel like, and how do we stop pushing that on these kids, because that's the programming, that's the institutional framework that we are stuck in trying to make these kiddos fit into, or even stuck with making us. One of the things I've noticed is that even for the 40, 50, 60-year-olds, those of us who the lineage came down through, are realizing, oh, I'm not happy when I work 8 to 5. I'm not happy when my life is nothing but mortgages and car payments and whatnot. And so then what we're seeing is a lot of loosening and untangling and starting to go, well, what if I have more time to write? What if I go part-time and I reduce my living expenses? And all of the concepts of simplicity that we've been talking about for years are now starting to make sense to us, but they're the primary basis of a lot of our children as to what they want and what they need going forward, if that makes sense. So with the rise of sensitives and the rise of these superpowers and this connectedness, this empathic connection that we're looking for, what we want to do is we want to break apart some of the rote programming that they face constantly. They're going to have learning differences. They're going to struggle with executive functioning, because executive functioning it sequences in 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And when you can do that, then you're a responsible human being. And they're like, I don't sequence it that way. I don't think so. So executive functioning skill sets are going to be low. In their IQ, it's scattered, and it seems like there's a low processing, like 85, 89, 90. And I like the idea that it's kind of coming down to maybe matching sort of the flow of the earth. I don't know. Why low processing? They have anxiety. They have school anxiety, social anxiety, performance anxiety. They're anxious all the time. They're also depressed because they're hopeless. Like, I don't fit in this world, and I don't know what to do because what my parents want me to do or what I'm doing isn't working for me. And so there's this sort of reluctance, like, this isn't working. And they self-medicate, and we're seeing a lot of that, especially in our youth. These are our leaders, these are our creatives, these are our artists that are going to take us forward. So how do we start, removing some of these traditional programming lines so that they have the opportunity to bust through this limited ceiling that we have oppressed on them, subjugated these creatives into. And so all that we know that is going to take us forward, we're stifling, and then we're really frustrated because we don't know what to do. And the answer is right there in our highly sensitives, in our creatives, in our children who are saying, why don't you ask me, and let's get outside the box and let's start thinking about something more creative that we can envision. And it starts with birth to 7. Birth to 7 is when we want to nurture, we want to bring out that truth, we want to bring out that voice, we want to talk to them about what are you here for, what do you know, what is your special superpower, and how can I empower you from this point on so that you know who you are and you know what works for you. Gandhi had a great quote, and I was sitting having coffee this morning and it came up and I was scribbling it down as fast as I could. The moment we institutionalize a creative idea, we lose the spark that gave it rise. Which means that when we try to harness those creatives or when we try to stifle them, what we do is, and we make sense, let's put them all in classrooms of 30. Let's have them all go from class to class to class in high school. Let's have them focus on liberal arts or, forget it, I'm off on a tangent. You know what I'm talking about. As soon as we institutionalize creativity, we lose it. So we want to release those old constructs, and that's what I do. I work with highly sensitive teens, highly sensitive young adults, and their parents. And it's like, so this is your kiddo. What do we do to sort of loosen this? And then I also empower you as the parent, which is, who am I? And if it came through me, this is what works for me, and this is what doesn't work for me. So that's the kind of work I do. And if you're interested, by all means, give me a call. You can find me on DeniseStridenCoaching.com, and I would love to chat with you. And meanwhile, I'm going to turn this off and sit on this porch and finish my cup of coffee. Have a great Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.